What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 84 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm very excited, as always, to be going over these episodes with you guys, so without further ado, let's not waste any more time and let's jump right into it. So, generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 84 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought it was a good episode. There were some elements of the episode that was interesting choices, to say the least, but obviously I'll get into those as the episode goes on. But we obviously got to start at the beginning of this episode, where we have a conversation between Nanaho and Goha Yuga. Obviously, Nanaho told Goha Yuga the whole situation that happened with Gakuto, Nail, and Asana and getting their memories back. And let's just say Goha Yuga wasn't too happy about this. He starts to get a little flustered about this because he doesn't understand why Monster Reborn wore off on them and they were able to get their memories back. But the news doesn't stop from there, because now we're starting to see some more ramifications of what these new formats that are being created thanks to Yuga's app are now causing. Now, one of the aspects with these new formats being created is that we have people going against each other because they believe their formats are the best, which is a thing that Goha Yuga wanted from the beginning. He wanted to cause despair and conflict between each other, and that's what's happening. You know, people are starting to get competitive with their own formats to the point where, you know, they're dueling against each other to prove whose format is the best. And from that perspective, it might seem like, you know, Goha Yuga is getting what he wants, but then it goes a little further than that. Because Goha Yuga went after Otis, Otis can no longer work the servers that, you know, is able to contain all these formats together. Because I had a feeling that, you know, there had to be a way that all these formats can be created without the servers overloading, and that was through Otis. But because Otis has now lost his memories thanks to Goha Yuga, there is no one to watch over these servers, to the point where if they can't stop these malfunctionings happening in the server, because all of these different formats are connected to the Goha duel system, which was the original formats, and if this malfunctions to the point where it just stops working, then no one can duel anymore. All these different formats that were created will no longer work, and we start to see Goha Yuga get a little bit concerned about it and almost kind of feeling sympathy to some degree, which, I'm going to be honest, wasn't really the biggest fan of that. You know, I understand that, you know, maybe this is losing like his biggest power when it came to him being able to cause despair and all this stuff is through dueling, because obviously the only way he's going to be able to use Monster Reborn is through dueling. But at the same time, you think, oh, this is a great thing for him, because this is going to probably cause the biggest despair out of them all, because people love to duel. And because of this whole thing that's going on, if the dueling stops working, then everyone will be in despair at this point, because they can no longer duel. And even though, yeah, Goha Yuga would not be able to use Monster Reborn and stuff like that anymore, but I don't think he really cares. I mean, hell, he destroyed Monster Reborn, so why does he have to care about it? But we're starting to see his memories as Swirly kind of intervene a little bit, because he has a flashback with Luke when he was Swirly, and we start to see him kind of remorse a little bit about what he's doing, and that's where I wasn't the biggest fan of. I want him to stay as a villain, and I do think he will, but I don't like the fact that we're already starting to see him, you know, being redeemed in a sense, like him being able to get back these memories as Swirly, or remembering the memories as Swirly. I kind of wish they didn't do that, because I wanted him to stay pure villain from then, or from where we're at now, to when he eventually gets defeated by Odo Yuga at the end of the show, like the third to last episode of the show, and to now start to see him kind of having some remorse already Not really the biggest fan of it. Does this mean that he's going to get redeemed before he duels Oda Yuga? No, he's still going to be a villain, but that, to me, I just kind of wish that we didn't see that. Maybe we could have saw that when we got closer to the Yuga duel, but obviously that wasn't the case, and we are already starting to see him remorse a little bit about what is going on, with the servers malfunctioning, and even starting to remember the old memories he had as Swirly. So you had that little interaction, and then we start to get to part of the main plot of this episode, which is with Yuga, Luke, Gakuto, and Roa's band members. Obviously, their next target to go after is Roa and Roman, since those are the last two characters that haven't got their memories back. And they specifically go after Roa first, and you notice that Roman isn't a part of the band on the poster. Like when they're looking at the poster, like you see them getting ready to put on a performance. However, we don't see Roman on the poster, which is very weird, which we'll get into in a minute. But we have them having some exchange with Geta, and here's another thing that's just like really weird with the episode. Geta in this episode states that he doesn't want to get Roa's memories back because everything that has been going on ever since he's gotten his memories lost have been great. The band has been able to do really well, and because of that, he doesn't want to give his memories back, which, by the way, why the hell did Yuga, Luke, and Gakuto not say a single word about that? I mean, the fact that he is literally willing to not get his best friend's memories back is insane. Like, I understand, like, they're still gonna do it anyways, it doesn't even matter. Like, it gives a reason as to why Geta isn't the one to duel, because, spoiler alert, Geta and Yoshio, for that matter, are not the ones to duel against Roa, which I'll talk about that in a little bit as we get to the duel of this episode. But the fact that he was willing to say that, yeah, I don't want to get Roa's memories back because, everything has been great with the band, that might be one of the most selfish things that have been said in this entire show, and it kind of made me lose some respect to Geta a little bit here, because I wasn't really a big fan of him saying that. Like, there is no reason why you should not want to get your friend's memories back, because think of all of the relationships that he has built with Rush Duels. Hell, your relationship with Roa grew when Rush Duels were a thing, so all of those memories that he had with you guys, during the time he remembered Rush Duels, those are not important. Yeah, I know there were some bad things that happened as well, but there were some good things that came out of it as well, and you just want everything to be reverted back to the way they were. Like, I don't really see Geta's logic in this to some degree, but that's just my opinion. I just really thought it was very weird that he just didn't want to get his memories back. And Omaya Yoshiro, like, he notices something very strange about Roa, to say the least, which, let me talk about this character as well. This might be one of the most mistreated characters in this entire show. Heck, I can honestly say that the same thing with Geta as well, but man, like, you gotta feel bad for Omaya Yoshiro, because literally when he comes out to go and talk to the group and tells Yuga that Roa was acting strangely, you have Luke, who forgets about him, which, it's Luke at this point, he's an idiot, like, we knew he was gonna not remember him, but even Gakuto, who I think is a pretty smart character and can remember things very well, doesn't even remember this character either. Like, this character gets crapped on so much. Like, yeah, I understand that's the whole gag with him, but you gotta have to feel a little bit bad for this character. Like, he just gets mistreated so much. Like, definitely Geta and Omaya Yoshiro are probably one of the two most mistreated characters of the show, or at least when it comes to, like, the side characters of the friends group. Like, every like pair of characters you have, and what, Asana, Geta, Schwer, and Caterpillar, that group. Then you have Gakuto with Ranze and Ryusuke, that makes that group. When it comes to Roa, Geta, and Omaya Yoshiro, definitely the two best friend characters of Roa have definitely been the most mistreated out of all of, like, the group companions of them, like the mini groups that we had in the show. And you gotta really have to feel bad for these characters in a sense. But before we go into the interaction with Yuga and Roa, we have to talk about the scene with Mimi, because there were some pretty interesting dialogue during the whole scene with Mimi. So we see Mimi reading a book to Yuo, kind of showing off her motherly figure to Yuo, and she brings up the Sevens Road book, which, by the way, before I even talk about that, shoutouts to Festifu. I think that's how you're supposed to say your name. I do apologize if I butchered it. Shoutouts to you because honestly, if you didn't mention that in the comments of my last review, I would have honestly completely have forgotten the book going into this episode. I actually had to backtrack in episodes to actually go back to the book because I'm going to be honest, I completely forgot about the book. And the fact that they actually brought that back up in this episode, I was honestly kind of surprised that they did it. I mean, not necessarily in a bad way. Like, I think it's actually really cool that they brought the book back up and it isn't just going to be, a reference to like the Sevens Road lore. And what I mean by that is kind of like giving lore to the Sevens Road archetype, because that's honestly, after watching that episode, I thought that was maybe what was going to happen to that book, was that it was just going to be, oh, a nice cool thing for like the lore of the Sevens Road archetype. But it seems like the book is going to have a little bit more relevancy now, which is pretty interesting. They don't talk much about it, but the interesting thing that came out of it was that we saw Yuo start to kind of almost remember the book in a sense, or at least that's the vibes that it gave me, the way that Yuo was talking about the Sevens Road book and when he was like trying to think about the book. So it makes me believe that Yuo might know something in regards to the Sevens Road book. Maybe he has the missing page, because when I went back in the episode, I forgot that one of the pages was ripped out of the book, and the crew does not know what happened to the page of the book. So maybe Yuo's the one that has it, or he might know who has that page. Like, I don't know. Like, that's something very interesting to kind of look out for when it comes to Yuo in these next couple of episodes, just to kind of see like what's his whole ordeal in the story with this book. So that was pretty interesting that they brought it up, because I'm going to be completely honest, I did not think they were going to honestly bring up the book ever again, but it's pretty cool that they actually decided to bring up the book once again. So you had that exchange, and going back to Yuga and the crew, they finally reach Roa. He's getting ready to set up for the performance, and you have the crew trying to regain his memories, or like trying to talk to him to help him re-jog his memories. Wasn't really working out, so Yuga decides to challenge him to a duel, just the same way of how it worked with Gakuto. And at first, Roa was basically just denying Yuga of a duel. That is, until Mimi and Roa's other fangirls, essentially, which, yes, Mimi is relevant in this. She even mentions to Yuo and the rest of the siblings that she was going to be heading out of the building to go and see the Roa concert. So we knew that she was going to be or I wouldn't say involved, but present as the duel with Yuga and Roa commences. And essentially, her and the rest of Roa's fangirls was able to motivate him to duel against Yuga. It eventually works, and we then get to Yuga versus Roa, which, before even talking about the duel, let me just start off by saying this. Going into this duel, I wasn't really excited for it, if I'm going to be completely honest. Now, a Roa versus Yuga rematch is really cool. I will say that, we haven't seen these two characters face off against each other since episodes 12 and 13. So from that perspective, it's really cool. But if I'm going to be honest, I'm not really a fan of any of the results that happen when it comes to this duel. Like, Roa losing is just a kick in the groin to Roa's character, especially since this is more than likely, and I'm not going to even say more than likely, it is going to be his last duel of the show. I mean, it's like I said with the other three characters that got their memories back. We just don't have the time to give them another duel. So with this being Roa's last duel, it's probably better for him to get the win, because I just feel like that's just like kind of like a disgrace to his character in a way if you make him lose his duel. Like, I feel like he loses a lot more here than Yuga does, because at least with Yuga, like, yeah, I'm not really a big fan of Yuga losing again, but honestly, in this case, I feel like it's better for Yuga to lose than for Roa to lose. And I kind of hate to say that because, again, I don't want Yuga to lose. I'm getting really sick and tired of Yuga losing. And I know that might sound a little bit harsh. And this is not saying that Yuga's a bad character. I think Yuga has been enjoyable as a character. But for the love of God, let this kid have a break and let him get on a streak. One of my biggest issues with this whole thing about him losing is that through the last almost 60 episodes of this show, we have not seen this kid get more than 3 wins in a row. And yeah, I know people are going to say that makes him more, like a relatable character. But even as someone that has been playing the game for so long, I feel like, yeah, it does make him relatable. But even having like 5 wins in a row that he wins, or hell, even when he had 9 wins in a row, I can relate to that. I've had streaks before and then I lose them. I'm not a perfect duelist in the slightest, and I lose from time to time. But him never getting more than 3 wins in a row, I just feel like that's just unnecessary. I feel like, especially for your protagonist, because I do expect a little more out of him, and I know, like, his whole thing is not to be the best duelist in the world, doesn't mean that you can't have him win at least more than 3 duels in a row. And the issue with him losing is that I just don't think we have enough time to give Yuga 3 duels in a row. That way, at least when he finishes off the show, he'll have at least 3 wins in a row that we can look back on and say, oh, at least he had, at least one time where he won 3 times in a row after that 9 win streak that he had. So it is a little upsetting to kind of look at this duel from that angle, but it's just the way it is. Now, if Yuga wasn't losing a whole bunch, like if he only had lost like 4 times in the show or something like that, then I would be completely fine with it. Hell, even if he lost 5 times in the show, like when I look at a protagonist, I normally like to see around 4 or 5 losses, and 6 I can live with. I just feel like after 6, you're starting to kind of push it a little bit, where I just think that's just a little too much for your protagonist to lose. And honestly, I think even 6 is kind of pushing it to some degree because of this being a shorter show, but you know what? I just don't think it's the end of the world. I think I would rather have 6 losses than like the 8, potentially 9 loss that Yuga's going to have. But looking at the context of this, if there is a character that absolutely needs to win more, I do think it is Roa. I just feel like it benefits him more than Yuga to win this duel because they just don't care to give Yuga losses. I mean, I personally wouldn't be really the biggest fan of it, but if I have to choose one, because having this not conclude or even a draw makes no sense, that doesn't really solve anything. I don't know, like, I just feel like Roa dueling is probably the best route they go with this, but if I'm going to be completely honest, I think they were just better off not having a Roa versus Yuga duel. I think a Geta versus Roa duel or Omayo Yoshiro versus Roa duel would have been a lot better, and even bringing that up as well, why aren't they the ones dueling against him? Like, I just feel like it's weird that we had the whole Ronze and Renosuke, essentially, because, let's be honest, they just tag teamed together versus Gakuto, and it was just like Renosuke, who was just the one that was actually dueling, and then you had Ronze drawing the cards for him and all that stuff. But why did Geta and Yoshio not be the ones to do it? Like, they are the only, like, friend group that did not duel against their leader. Like, I just feel like that's really weird that they're not the ones to do it. Like, Geta, yeah, I understand, but even Omayo Yoshiro, like, why isn't he the one dueling against Roa? Like, Geta, I can understand because of the stuff that he was talking about earlier in the episode where he didn't want to get his memories back, but Omayo Yoshiro honestly could have fit in this whole scenario, but I guess they thought Yuga would have been a more enjoyable duel than, I guess, Omayo Yoshiro, even though I think Roa versus Omayo Yoshiro would have been pretty interesting, especially since we haven't seen him duel since he dueled against Rook all the way back in, like, what, episode 10? Holy crap, he has not dueled since episode 10. That's been a really long time since we've seen him duel. Even Geta to some degree, because the last time we seen him duel was against Roa, actually, when he was a part of Nail's team, because he was gonna what was that? I think he was a little angry at Roa for something. I can't really remember the whole context of that whole thing. That episode was just interesting, to say the least. But we have Roa versus Yuga. The duel so far, in terms of the dueling action, has been pretty interesting. Probably my favorite moment of the episode, or at least for the duel, was when they were able to essentially reenact a certain part from their first duel, where he was able to get heavy metal onto the field, was able to use its effect to be able to destroy Sevens Road Witch, and was able to gain attack points equal to her attack point stat, and essentially left it to the point where Yuga was going to take the same amount of damage that he took from their previous duel with the way that it all played out, which I think was a really cool reference to that whole moment. And obviously it doesn't work. Yuga was able to essentially stop the attack from happening, and you had a little cool thing where if you remember back in the Yuga nail duel, I believe it was, Yuga activated a trap card that could switch Sevens Road Magician and Sevens Road Witch, and that would essentially make them take the attack. We saw in that duel, you had Sevens Road Witch get substituted for Sevens Road Magician. Magician took the hit, and Yuga was able to survive against Nail. Now you're having the opposite way that it ended up happening, where Sevens Road Magician tagged out for Witch, and Witch was the one that took the damage from heavy metal and was able to essentially help Yuga live that turn. So it was really cool that they did that. Other than that, there wasn't really much else that happened in regards to the duel, as not much else happens in this duel. In fact, the duel doesn't even conclude in this episode, meaning that going into episode 85, it's going to essentially continue our duel between Yuga and Roa, which, going back to my synopsis I had from the last episode review, because if you guys remember, I've been trying to essentially predict what the last couple of episodes are going to look like, and if you remember, I was able to have an extra episode to just do whatever, whether it was like a plot heavy episode, or if you wanted to just get an extra duel in there for some reason. I didn't really know what it was going to be. It seems like that extra episode is going to be for this 2-part Roa duel, and kind of looking at it a little bit more now, that might mean that Roman might get a 2-part duel as well, meaning that if we go back to that little, like, I guess, I wouldn't say list, it was like kind of more that prediction that I had for it. It seems like we'll have a 2-part Roa duel. We'll have more than likely a 2-part Roman duel, because I feel like it would be weird for her not to have a 2-part duel, meaning that the Nanaho duel, which I originally had as a 2-part duel, will be a 1-part duel. Then you obviously will have our Goha Yuga duel, which is 2 parts, and then our ceremonial duel, which is 2 parts. So it's going to be a very interesting next couple of episodes, to say the least. But that's probably where I'm going to just stop from there. I just feel like, that seems like the route they're going to be going. The only thing I can maybe see them changing up with this is that maybe, Roman will only have 1 episode, but I just feel like it would be weird if they didn't give her a 2-part duel, since Roa and Gakuto had 2-part duels. So it's going to be very interesting look into next couple of episodes. But going back into this episode, 2 more interesting things came out of this episode. The first thing is we learned that Roman became a solo artist, which was very interesting to say the least, which they have kind of hinted that this was going to happen. I mean, last episode we see her performing by herself alongside Princess G. She was in the booth, letting Roman do, her performance in a way to practice, probably like for some album or something like that. We didn't see Roa and the rest of his band anywhere, which wasn't the biggest like red flag that she might have went solo, but it was kind of hinting at it at that point. And then even in this episode, we see the poster and Roman isn't on it at all, which was very interesting as well. And that's because she left the band to go solo, which, I mean, good for her, that's a great thing. But here is why it ended up becoming a problem, because Roa didn't even mention it. I mean, hell, Geta and Omae Yoshiro didn't even realize that Roman went to go and perform solo, yet Roa did know about it. And that just kind of caused a little bit of conflict here, because why did Roa not say a word about Roman becoming a solo artist? Like, that is something that absolutely needs to be touched in the next episode. More so of why he decided to keep it a secret. Did Roman tell them to not say anything about her becoming a solo artist? Like, why did he decide to keep this a secret from the group. Which, speaking of secrets, going into the second thing that happened in this episode, and it was actually at the very end, we see Yugioh start to exchange some dialogue, and essentially goes and explains his theory as to why Luke did not lose his memory, which it was great that they brought that up, because that was something that was very weird with that whole thing with Gohan Yugioh as to why Luke was the only one that did not lose his memories. And Yugioh believes the reason why Luke did not lose his memories is because he had a friendship, a bond with Yugioh prior to Rush Duels being installed, and that's why Luke was not able to lose his memories, which makes sense, I guess, because obviously if you knew Yugioh and Yugioh was the one that created Rush Duels, if you were able to make a bond with him prior to it, that means that you want to be affected by the Monster Reborn. So I guess it makes sense, and basically the whole point of this was because of this, it makes us believe and makes Yugioh like figure out that Roa didn't actually lose his memories, which they kind of did hint at this as well, because if you go back to the episode when everyone lost their memories, Roa was the weirdest one out of the bunch, because all we see with him is his eyes just like completely blacked out. We don't get to see his eyes at all. You know, with the rest of the group, they just looked, you know, soulless in a sense. But Roa was the only one that looked different out of the group, where, you know, they had the typical protagonists like shading under their eyes to where you can't see their eyes. And that makes us believe that Roa did not lose his memories, which makes sense because you had that whole event with, you know, Yugioh getting the Sevens Row Magician, and Roa essentially thought it was going to be for him, and it obviously didn't be the case, which actually bringing up that moment, because based off of Yugioh's logic, Otis shouldn't have lost his memories because of the fact that he was the one that gave Sevens Row Magician to Yugioh and created a bond there. Though that causes some conflicts that I wouldn't really be a big fan of if they ended up going this route. The first thing is the server. Why the hell then would he leave the server if he did not lose his memories? If he lost his memories, it makes sense, because why would he even remember Yugioh making that whole like program to be able to create all these different formats? Why would he care about the server? So that would make sense. And if he did not lose his memories, episode 71 becomes completely pointless, because an entire damn episode was to essentially have Otis lose his memories, to cause him to have to leave the server, to lead to this whole conflict, and it causes Yugioh and the group to be, you know, a little bit in like despair in a sense, because the person that essentially allowed Rush Duels to be installed is now lost his memories. So that would make sense for him to lose his memories, and I feel like that would just be bad writing and a waste of time to do that. But then that also makes characters like Gakuto make no sense as to why he lost his memory, because I feel like he should have a deeper bond than Roa does, unless there's something more with Roa and Yugioh we don't know, which, if that's the case, that needs to be touched on in episode 85, because from what we know so far with Roa and Yugioh, there needs to be more explained to convince me that Roa should have kept his memories, but Gakuto didn't, which I do think they will do that, because based off of this logic right now, there are some characters who lost their memories, but based off of this logic, shouldn't have. So they definitely need to focus on touching that a little bit more. But with that being said, that is going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on episode 84. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like this episode at all? Let me know your guys' thoughts on Yugioh versus Roa. Are you happy that this is the duel that we got? Or do you think it shouldn't have been a character like Geta or Amaya Yoshiro to be the ones to duel against Roa? We'll love to know all your guys' thoughts on this episode down below. But before I end up this episode, I do need to make a quick little thing in regards to this review. So obviously, this is going to be uploaded after episode 85 is aired. I was not able to get episode 84 to actually load for me. Like, I was not able to watch the episode until like 4 o'clock in the morning. So that's why this review is coming out so late. So I do apologize for that. But because of this, do not mention anything in regards to episode 85 or the 86 summary. I just feel like this is not the video to do it. If you want to discuss anything in regards to episode 85, I will be doing a review on episode 85. So wait to talk about that episode until that episode review comes out. And the same for the 86 summary. I'll try to get back to doing the summary preview analysis. I'm not going to promise that. I might just not do that for the rest of Sevens and just will start that back up at Go Rush. We're just going to have to wait and see. But just do not mention anything in regards to episode 85. That's just the only thing that I ask when it comes to this, and any prior videos that I do that I record later. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.